Do you believe in miracle? Can you find the magic hiding behind the eyes of the tragic? Call it the rising tide should free will abide. Hell, the havoc of the hericle. First step premonition, free fall perdition, always blaming yourself when you crawl. Seek the wall and roll into the stall. Never blame yourself when you to walk. Rise, rise, rise and raise the brazier of the herald, and call me the undertow that flows beneath burnt bridges. Bless and bestow upon me the alias river Styx, the title of troubled waters. And finally, once you're airborne again, don't forget to attack with the prodigal son at your back. Hail, hail, all hail, all hail the miracle of the hericle.
The program you are about to hear is fiction, science fiction. We make no guarantees, however, how long it will remain fiction, fiction, fiction.
Revelation salutations, Cognonauts. Welcome back to another episode of Exofathom, where we explore the fringe of all sorts of ideas. My name's Mike, and as always, I'm joined with my two lovely co-hosts, Nick and Ayla. How y'all doing?
Hey, Mike. Hey, I'm good. How are you, man?
Oh, I'm doing. I'm so happy I pre-recorded that. That would have been weird if I just belted that out. It would have been awkward. How you doing down there, Ayla?
Oh, I'm doing good down here. How y'all doing way over there?
Oh, it's been I had the Monday off because of President's Day, so it was actually really nice. I got to like sleep in and wake up at like 3 p.m. and like meander around my house and do some chores, all the laundry, all the dishes. It was great.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like a very nice domestic day.
Mm-hmm. Like most weekends. Just happy to do my stuff.
I'm going to be talking about miracles. And it's a topic that is interesting. It's actually, my research came up kind of nebulous. Like, I tried to like ground it within some sort of science, but it seems like science really can't explain it. So they just sort of discredit it entirely. And then from the other side, it seems like they look to science to eventually explain it. So we're going to hopefully try to meet some middle ground. But my first question to both of you is, do you believe in miracles?
Where are you from? Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that personal miracles happen on a regular basis. I do. Yeah, because I guess you could define miracle as some sort of like divine intervention almost. So yeah, I think miracles do exist for sure.
What about you, Ayla?
I mean, I think that they exist insofar as we have minds to think about them. Because, an event is just an event. We kind of ascribe meaning to it. So like personally, yeah, I've experienced miracles. It's pretty awesome. But, you think about it, and miracle denotes a certain definition, which can shift, So like something that's good today, depending on what happens tomorrow, could totally shift. So I don't know. I mean, I think miracles, I don't know. What was the question again? What did I think about miracles, or how would I
do you believe? So I'll just give you an example. I actually just accidentally muted my my Yard Stream tab while we were going through that introduction. So I apologize if I had a really awkward transition into the conversation about miracles, but I was able to find the unmute tab. So that to me is like a minor miracle for this whole introduction.
I hear you. And see, like, let's say you had farted right before you pressed unmute, and so you captured that. then in 90 minutes from now, when you listen to this again, you'd be like, oh, damn it, that wasn't a miracle. That was awful. So it's about timing too, you know, like that's what I mean to say is like, I think miracles, it's part of how we define things one way or the other. And I mean, you know, I concede that they happen. I just, they're not static, you know, they're like these little, I don't know, bursts of light in time.
And so do you think that a miracle one day could be a tragedy the next day?
Yeah.
Intriguing.
Well, think about like people who have like think about SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. You know, every little birth, it's a miracle. But you know, if they were to expire immediately after, that's awful. And I don't know, I mean, does that take away from the miracle, or is it just a tragedy following a miracle and two separate things entirely? I don't know, but that's what comes to mind. That was really dark. I'm so sorry. I hope I didn't bum you out.
No, you're fine. Because there would be, as we dive into the philosophy of it, both Hume and Spinoza would argue different points about that. But I find more interesting the notion of like time series, where at time equals 1, it's a miracle that the kid is born, and then at time equals 2, it's a tragedy that the kid died. But a miracle might be, I wonder if you can generalize it, and some people do, to just a probabilistically unlikely event to happen, where like the probability is near 0. So like
and I would say that it has some sort of impact, because guess what cup I'm holding right now? It's a cup that says the fart. And it has all these weird facts about farts. That's kind of a miracle, because like, what are the odds that I'd be holding that cup as I made a joke like that?
It was the last cup in our cupboard, so
yeah.
Oh, y'all need to do some dishes
because you never use it. So
yeah, I know. I'm mortified, but also it's because my God, it's from an old move, and these old boxes came to my house, and it was a cup I had as a kid that like I didn't have for a very long time, and so now I'm like, oh, what do I do with this? This is kid humor. But anyway,
that's like some Kaiser Love or Kaiser Soze level. I just mixed Soze with level into one word. Kaiser Soze level of observation, where you just saw this cup and just worked it into your story.
Maybe subconsciously, yeah.
Just channeling some usual suspects over there.
I do what I can.
I know. So maybe we could break down some definitions, and then I'll ask you again what you think about miracle, because I do think it's something that can be abstracted if we use, I guess, just a certain part of one definition, because it seems to have just like a generally uplifting connotation, but I like to ruin all of those things and make them like fair, like some sort of two-face of language. So I think this might work. So the first definition is a surprising and welcome event that is not explicable by natural or scientific laws, and is therefore considered to be a work of a divine agency. As Nick, you were saying earlier, like some sort of divine intervention. Second definition is a highly improbable or extraordinary event, development, or accomplishment that brings very welcomed consequences. And I would like to just like, if I could cut that off at a highly improbable, extraordinary event or development, to me, that I feel like that encompasses the improbability of miracles. And the third one,
fun to say.
That's true. And the third one, highly improbable or extraordinary or extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just depends on the pronunciation. Syllables are fun. An amazing product or achievement, or an outstanding example of something. And I guess with that one, that makes
the miracle on ice.
Yeah, exactly. When the States beat Russia, and even things like 9 out of 10 times Russia would have beat us, or the old CCCP, whatever the hell they are. Don't care enough. But whatever they were, like 9 times out of 10, they would beat the States. But just this one time, we were able to beat them. And that was an Olympic hockey game. I don't think it was not for the gold medal. It was to get into the gold medal game when the Olympics were here at Lake Placid in the 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's where the commentator, was it Al Mike? I don't know. I forget who the commentator was. It might have been Al Michaels. It was like, "Do you believe in miracles?" as he shouted as the clock wound down. Because we were not supposed to be the USSR at all.
Right.
It was supposed to be impossible, but
Yeah.
it happened.
It did, yeah. And it's funny too, because when you're going through these definitions, like the first one is tied towards like the divine providence or the favor of fortune or whatever. But I wonder if like that's kind of in sort of like a roundabout way also pointing to like the high improbability. Because I would think that, especially, if you're going back in time with the gods and how fickle they were back in the day, you would consider divine intervention something that would rarely happen. I think something that wouldn't take place all that often.
And now you're kind of teasing this a little bit out of me, but it points directly to that. And Hume would say it's a transgression against natural law, right? So like that divine intervention sort of thing. And then the response to that from Spinoza is that we were just too ignorant to understand it, that it was actually all within natural law, it was all within science. Somebody could, like the 9 out of 10 times, and just we caught them on the 1 out of 10 times. There was no God that came down and granted us the luck of achieving it. But again, it's this thing of like, are we too ignorant to understand actually what a miracle is from observational facts? Right? Because it could have always been that the Russians just didn't practice hard enough, that they were comfortable within their own ego, and where we had nothing to lose. So we had a chip on our shoulder, so to say. And so we practiced our asses off. We put in all the hard work and made that miracle. We engineered the miracle.
So do once we start conceptualizing it through the scientific lens, do miracles ever like even exist anymore?
No.
Right.
Everything can be considered a miracle at that point.
Right.
Which loses the charm of the event. It loses a little bit of its woo-woo, and it loses a little bit of its spectacle. Yeah. And spectacle and luck and those sorts of notions tie into it. And then even further, you remember when I said you have to be good to be lucky and lucky to be good? One could replace lucky with the word miraculous. So you have to be good to be miraculous and miraculous to be good. And it would kind of work within the same definition and connotation of what a miracle is. Yeah. And that's also super intriguing.
Yeah. And I think, too, it's funny too, because you think like, miracle and hope seem to be intrinsically tied together. So if we progress in society in this method of trying to strip away the magic from a miracle, are we taking away certain elements of hope as well that otherwise might be necessary for the human psyche?
Maybe. And I could even venture to say that hope is a component of engineering a miracle. So you have to hope for this long shot to work out. Right. Because it really is a miracle is a long shot that succeeds, right? In the uplifting sense. Yeah. And if we all reduce everything to science, then all the miracles are just scientific feats and more practically engineering feats, whether that be through typical engineering or something like social engineering or spiritual engineering, what have you. It becomes an engineering problem, which then removes a little bit of that element of the intrinsic nature of the miracle, because when you make engineering decisions, you usually don't want to bet on a long shot. You just
Right.
want to do what you know is going to always work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think there's something a little bit pernicious about this idea of just using cold numbers to sort of contextualize the world. Because you got to think, and not to get too personal into my last few months, but I lost somebody in the family, and there were moments in which we were getting so many stats and figures from different doctors and nurses telling us yes or no, this could happen, that could happen. It's like it's up in the air. So this person that I lost was kind of up and down on this roller coaster, and it was really tough because you would get hopeful about it, and then a nurse would report the numbers and you would lose that hope. And then it's funny because it felt like once the hope was lost by the person that I lost is when she started to actually die. And so I think that that's kind of like, that's what I'm getting at with this like weird sort of stripping away of the magic of hope, because the demarcation in her, or like sort of like the start of her decline was when the hope was lost.
Yeah, and I like how you called it the magic of hope, because just to play devil's advocate, of course, I empathize with your loss. I've been in similar situations throughout the years. But for the sake of our conversation, I'm going to have to be a little cold and callous, and I apologize for that. But one would say that you just didn't understand, you and the person just didn't understand all of the factors that played into that cold calculated numbers. So it could be expressed to you where you would still, I guess, carry the same feeling of hope, but it wouldn't be expressed as hope.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. And, I've had conversations with people who have said exactly that. So that's not really cold to me. I understand where that's coming from. But I would also point out the idea that when we do have people who say definitively one thing and then it doesn't happen, they're not culpable for that. You know what I mean? So it's like, you could be certain that somebody's going to, like pass away, and then they don't. So it's like, okay, so certainty is something that we're trying to reach for in this sort of conundrum, but like it's almost, there's always, it's Pandora's box. It's literally Pandora's box. The last thing that comes out of the box is hope. So it's that last percentage of a percentage of a percentage of a chance that something might turn out different.
Yeah, and that's, I'll go for it.
Well, I was just going to say, I thought it was interesting. Nick brought up earlier kind of like why miracles and hope are a part of our psyche and what we lose if we lose that or something like that. And so I guess I had two thoughts. One was, I'm not an atheist. I'd probably say I'm more like agnostic among other things, but like for those that are true atheists, and if you are listening, please comment. Did you ever grieve the like loss of a belief in miracles and hope, right? The specialness of the universe? Because to me, it seems like, not to equate it with like Santa Claus, but I mean, it's this abandoning of a veil. And it would be interesting to have maybe like a survey about how somebody who doesn't believe in hope and miracles and things like that in that context versus somebody who, well, because then I guess you could still call it like a belief in anomalies or like, different field theories, but you know what I mean? Like
the statistically improbable, the hope that the least probable thing will happen.
Yeah,
like, keep going. I don't want to break the train of thought.
Okay, sorry. I was just gonna add that, like, my father, and I've probably talked about this, but he was diagnosed with cancer a couple years ago. Beat it. But what was interesting was that his surgeon, um, obviously being the person I am, I researched him before he operated on my dad, and one of the theses or like research things that he came up with was about how important communication is with clients, and that like he actually was an advocate of not staging people with certain cancers, because like certain cancers, they can say, oh, if you're this far advanced, you have this much time to live or whatnot. But he made a really compelling scientific argument for how it's better not to do that. It's better not to play that prediction game. And a lot of it came down to like just the psyche, patient care. If they think they have a certain period of time to live, they're more depressed, they're more anxious, they're less likely to follow through protocols, which means that they're less likely to live as long as they could have lived. I mean, like, you weigh the benefits and the pros and the cons. There's just no pro to staging a person. And so he had this whole thing where he's like, I'm not going to talk about it. Um, and I really liked that. And I think that goes part and parcel with what Nick was saying about hope being maybe this necessary ingredient for the psyche that we have.
I tend to I tend to agree. I'm sorry, my mind was running.
You just like to be
because
contrarian. So your
at
knee
least
jerk
on
is,
the
I
show,
disagree.
right? It's just like a autonomic response, like it's
You
disagree to
busted.
everything.
Mhm.
You bust in like the Kool-Aid man. I disagree.
Great, yeah.
Devil's advocate.
Yeah, no. Because I'm actually really interested in how to engineer miracles. And that brings my mind to, like, as you were stating, like this thing of not staging something, but this notion of broken heart syndrome, where in certain relationships, when it's gone on for a long time, you separate, and then the person, or through, usually typically through death, like one person dies within the relationship, and within 6 months the other person dies, and their heart actually weakens. They have to go to the hospital, and they diagnose this as broken heart syndrome, because they don't really, science doesn't really know what's happening. They just know that the heart becomes so weakened that they have to be hospitalized. And it's almost like this, within the moment, the immediate collapse of hope, or of goodwill, or good faith, or love, or whatever words you want to put in there, that I don't think our language is fit to put in there quite yet. If you could, drop the math of broken heart syndrome through symbolic symbols, that'd be fantastic. You solve a lot of problems. But just that thing of like that hope, that sort of holding out for the thing, once that goes away, within your case, Ayla, of staging somebody, that can rip something away and force events to happen, to kind of put it in like a chess sort of light, where like you remove the probability of the miracle, because you have stated as an authority the miracle cannot happen.
Yeah, it's a nocebo effect. We've mentioned this many, many times. When somebody in a position of authority tells you something is going to happen, you believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's utterly dangerous, especially for something as fragile as the phenomena of miracles go.
Yeah.
Right? You throughout, like, it's almost weird. It almost feels like, to kind of take it back, like, look at our national anthem. Our national anthem as Americans is about a battle that we probably should have lost. But even in our song, we say somehow our flag was still waving, right?
Yeah.
And it was still there. So it's almost like this notion of miracle, of the improbable, sits at the foundation of our own being, which then implies that anything within this nation can fall far further than somewhere where a more scientific notion or a more imperialistic notion takes over. Where or we just don't care about miracles. They're just a thing.
Well, and I will say we have one of the best songs because I remember anytime, like you're at a ball game and they sing that song, I get a little teary-eyed. I mean, I'm not the most patriotic person. Like I have the tiniest flag that I only got because some realtor put it on my lawn 2 years ago. But when I hear that song, I'm just like, oh, it's such a good song. And like you think about the history. I didn't even think about like the battle and just like, yeah,
Yeah.
those are people that had a dream and they gave their lives for it, which is pretty impressive.
That flag behind me. Somebody got buried because of that flag. I guess over here, that flag. It's from I think my great grandfather, World War II. And it comes from the same place. But yeah, deep patriotic sense and how miracles work into that is actually rather interesting because it actually ties back to the hockey notion, how it just proliferates through our whole culture as a nation.
Well,
sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, quick thing. I just was thinking one person's miracle is another person's non-miracle. If you think about
Tragedy?
it that way. Yeah, that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can be. But that's the way it goes. That's the sides of the coin. You know what I mean? That's something that you really can't get away from as a phenomenon, right? Just like I like to think of it in
Oh my
the
God,
lightest sense of getting a job. Every job you get, somebody else didn't get.
I was gonna say the same thing, but for the lottery, how horrible it is that like if you win the lottery, you just deprived millions of other people of winning the lottery, and that's probably why people have really bad luck after winning the lottery because you just stole the
Oh,
potentiality
you think it's
of
like
miracles.
a karmic system?
I don't know. Now I don't like.
Return?
I mean, I'm not gonna gamble ever again because what if it is? What if like by winning anything you accumulate some sort of like karmic debt? Ugh, I don't know. That's
Define
creepy.
winning. What do you mean by winning?
Oh God, here we go. What were you gonna say, Nick, earlier?
Oh, I don't remember now. Come on, man. I can't hold that in there.
Conversation is just rolling.
Yeah. No, but it does remind me a little bit of the fortune and luck episode we did. I think that what it was we were talking about sort of like the mythology that we have within our country structure and about what we see as America too. And I think it's like this sort of notion that the gods are in our favor, that that God is on our side and has our providence. Basically, Fortuna is on our side. And so, like you're talking too about like everybody's, one person's luck and prosperity is another person's destitution. Well, yeah, that's the fickle nature of it, right? It's that fickle nature of the divine providence. You don't know when it's going to hit. And sometimes it's not really fair.
Or it's the wake of Nemesis.
Yeah.
No,
well,
can we not devolve into manifest destiny? Can we keep it away from that sort of notion?
Right.
I just really want my Nemesis statue. My pewter Nemesis statue. That needs to happen.
But I mean, this gets into like the morality of this too, right? So it's like, why does one person deserve a miracle over another person?
Yes.
And like that's tough.
That's what the scientific and naturalists and these imperialists try to move things from, because they find the notion that some of us within Christianity and Catholicism, you could call it being sanctified or canonized. And it takes a certain amount of miracles to become canonized. Usually it's 2 and a life of righteous and rigorous virtue, according to them. But why do some of us become canonized and given these gifts of the gods, to put it in the ancient Greek sense of, like the most common miracle would be something of sudden healing, or of material exchange, turning water into wine, healing the leopard. Within Buddhist sense, it's like, can even add duplicity. So like, I think that's the proper word. Having duplicates of yourself. Am I right with that word, or am I just completely off? Okay.
Duplicity, yeah.
Okay,
so it does sound bad, like duplicitous.
So like those are all be considered miracles, but the question that the scientists want to disregard is like, why are some of us given that ability and others are not? That does
Mhm.
not seem fair, and God should not be unfair.
Yeah, which is so funny because it's like they call it the morality of luck, I think. And I was reading a Stanford white paper about it, and boy, oh boy, they, yeah, they really break down all the instances of like the morality of all of that stuff. I mean, like, yeah, but what can we say? So just because somebody gets favored, nobody should get it. It's kind of like a very childish human response to
Yeah.
something that doesn't make sense. It's like, well, no, that's not fair. Nobody should get it. If I can't get a toy too, my brother or sister shouldn't get the toy.
Yeah. And think about like the it's actually really funny you bring that up. Now my brain is going off. What is it? What is it? Book of Matthew? I heard it through Jordan Peterson, but the law of economics, like he who deserve or he who has everything will get more, and he who has nothing, everything would be taken away from that person, or something like that. And basically, it makes sense. Like think about so like those who are good will be given good things. They become miraculous, so they're granted the ability to do more miracles.
Yep.
It makes sense within a corporate or company structure too, right? Like those who do the best, you promote them, which means you're given more responsibility. And as the more responsibility they take, the higher title they have. So if you look at it like that, why isn't it true that your brother who gets good grades, gets good things, should not continue to get good things
Right.
at a exponential rate in the best case, but still, even within the linear case, still gets more things versus, let's say, it's my brother, and I just keep doing these bad things over and over and over. Why should I get anything good if I continue bad behavior?
I think also, yeah, I think also it points to, well, I think it points to our inner sort of feelings of inadequacy as well, right? So it's like, when we see people accumulate success, and definitely they do, like, success begets success. So it's like the ball starts to roll down the hill. And I think that it's hard not to feel a little bit inadequate when that's not happening to you. And then you kind of scorn Fortuna, and you're like, shaking your fist at her, or, almost falling into a well and then blaming her for it.
Yeah, but aren't like in a certain way though. So like when I see somebody like that, I do remember. So I remember as a child feeling that way. Um, this kid in elementary school who was smarter than me and who had more resources than me, getting more praise than me, and I felt extremely jealous. But as I got older, I realized I'm happy those people exist. That because if I was put in their shoes, I probably wouldn't be able to perform at the level that they can. So screw it. Just give them more response. Just keep giving them all that shit until they hit their breaking or they hit their plateau. And then find the next person who can perform better than them and give them all of that stuff that they deserve. Because that's the way we as a civilization move forward. And it's not like one shouldn't look at it as like I deserve all of that. It's like a very Machiavellian, egotistic point of view. But just if you do your part, then you can handle the responsibilities that that person that doesn't handle or doesn't have to handle. That person doesn't have to do that. So then the person above them can do something else, and all of you work as a team to get something done to achieve a much larger miracle, as we're talking about miracle engineering, than any one person can do. Like I think everybody can achieve their own little miracles that begets bigger miracles for our larger civilization.
Yeah, that's the concept of, basically everybody has their own little mini mountain to climb. It's not like everybody's climbing Mount Everest. Your Mount Everest looks different than mine. And, you can tailor that climb to be as difficult as you want or as easy as you want. You can level it to the ground if you want. But I think that there's something interesting about being able to tailor that difficulty to get it right into that sweet spot where it's challenging enough for you to hope for a miracle, and not too easy that you stop taking miracles for granted, or you start taking miracles for granted.
Or scorn others' miracles, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
I might achieve my miracle, but somebody else's might outshine mine. And then
Right.
I feel angry because that other person has a much larger miracle than I have.
Mhm.
And so then I want to then, I don't know, go postal or something. Like in the
Like,
extreme sense, right?
yeah.
Cause a tragedy because that miracle wasn't good enough for me. But then that, in a way, then we all become miraculous. But then the naturalists, these scientists will say, well, if we all become miraculous, nobody's miraculous. So, and that becomes the crux of this problem of the miracle, where it like sex in that thing we can't explain, but one day should be able to explain.
I mean, I would even argue the nature of reality and existence in the first place is miraculous. So yes, everybody can be miraculous, because the fact that any of this exists at all is a conundrum that nobody can figure out why. And to me, that seems like a miracle. If we can map out the entire universe up to 99.9999%, we'll never really get to that answer as to why does anything exist instead of nothing. Because it was just as equally as probable, if not more so, that this whole thing just spread out into a fine mist that never coalesced into anything.
It's true. That's very true. And it's miraculous that we had an uneven distribution of matter to where
Right.
gravity can pull things together and start to make little tiny rocks and shit
Yeah.
that got bigger and bigger and bigger into planets or suns and black holes, whatever have you. Then that breathes in life. Like it's a miracle within itself, because it might. I don't know if that's. I suppose it's improbable.
I mean, but does that, so if you could run a little mini Big Bang machine that just basically projects out an evolution of a universe, and you can run those cycles, how many times do we get to this point? I guess that's where you figure out whether it's a miracle or not.
That's true.
Maybe it happens every time.
Hopefully, right? Like that's the thing I would hope. But if there's even distribution all the time, then this universe is a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
If everything explodes out at the same rate of acceleration over the same amount of time, gravity is a weak force, never happens, assuming that everything's at the same mass. And then you're just kind of like stuck floating in this fucking nothing.
Grid. Grid of particles. Yeah.
Cool. It is very cool. But we've touched on a lot of things. And what I find interesting is that there's I did 5 seconds of n-gram analysis through Google. Like I didn't parse this myself. I didn't look through the what's called a corpus, which is just a collection of documents or books or something like that. I didn't do any of this myself. This is all from Google. So we have the highest percentage of the word miracle within books at around the late 1800s, or I'm sorry, the early 1800s, at 0.0011% of books use the word miracle. It appeared somewhere in there. And then this drops all the way until 1980, where we have a low at 0.00039. And then from 1980 till now, or until 2019, this is the best statistics that they have, it rises to 0.009%. And what I find intriguing is that this sort of, not correlates, but there's a connection between this and, as Ayla was talking about in our the possession episode, about the rise in exorcisms.
Mm-hmm.
An exorcism is actually considered a form of miracle if it's sudden.
Right.
So it's sort of interesting to see how our miracle and exorcisms have actually increased in most recent times. And why do you think that is? Why do you think there's been this sudden desire for miracles since the 80s? Was it like the Cold War sort of thing? Is it like we're all freaked out?
Ayla, what do you think?
I think that in hard times we need hope. And so, like Nick was alluding to, if miracle is a part of hope, it would signal to me this searching to find those kind of like confirmations that the world is a magnanimous place through these little events as you navigate something that's much difficult on the whole. That's kind of where I think of it. But also, too, I love this idea of looking at the word miracle and its instances in literature and things like that. Although it's funny because as we start to have more of this like internet slang, in like 100 years, is there going to be some scholar that's like looking up hashtags and using that as a basis of like influence and like, God, how
There's
to go from like Shakespearean English to like, I don't know,
Wow.
There's
hashtag
some
miracle. I don't know. It'd be weird. It would be very weird.
there's some really interesting subset analysis you can do where it's like even outside of hashtag miracle, you could do something like hashtag blessed. Right? So,
Yeah, you could.
and you would have to filter through a lot of noise, I would imagine. But if you take the basis that if a person considers that they're blessed, that they have um, worked a miracle in some way or form, then that's okay. You can work within those rules of your study. But blessed is actually a very hard defined notion of somebody that has been I forget the word. Sorry, give me a minute to look it up. But it's what happens when you're on your way to being canonized.
Mm.
It's called I'm beatified, maybe beatified, but beatified. It's the last step before being canonized, and it's an individual who has contributed at least one miracle, or has contributed exactly one miracle to a situation due to their intercession. So, like, if I showed up at your party and turned all the water into wine for giggles, then you can argue that that was a miracle and I deserve to be beatified, and therefore I deserve the title blessed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actual thing. So if you take that analysis to mean like, for example, if I took in the subset of words hashtag blessed, hashtag miracle to mean the class of miracles, you could bring that in and analyze that from a, I guess, a social scientist point of view with respect to computational science. But you're right. We're going to get further and further on with this thing, Gayla, where we start to look at social media posts as
Signifiers of
literature.
human experience.
Well, I mean, as experiences, we from an AI point of view or an NLP point of view, we would say documents within the larger corpus of the largest set of data we can find, which is humanity, right? Because obviously, an American hashtag blessed would probably be different than, say, like English hashtag blessed or a Japanese hashtag blessed.
And then you got to get into the thousands of variations of the hashtag blessed that you can possibly create,
As well as ironic usage. You'd have to code for all of that.
Yeah.
You sure do. You sure do. And it could be as simple as understanding the word not, or it can be as complex to understanding
Sarcasm.
Enneagram, sarcastic models.
What was that again?
Sarcasm. I combined two irrelevant words.
Sarcasmistic.
Oh, I thought this was like an AI term. I was like, no shit.
He's creating an AI term right now.
Yep, just come with it on the spot.
Yeah. You just get all these sarcastic robots. Like,
that would be great.
Actually, Mike, I could definitely see that being your contribution to like AI consciousness is just interjecting a little sarcasm.
Yeah. Who's that guy? That's the guy that invented sarcasm for AIs.
Yeah.
He's the father of.
That's not an easy thing to do with an AI, let me tell you.
It doesn't sound easy.
Well, that's why like I love Star Trek Next Generation, because you see the evolution of Data's character as he goes through the show. And he's an AI and he's trying to act like a human, but he's not a human. And there's just little things that he remarks on that, like, whoever wrote that was really forward thinking, because it's cool. I like his little quips.
Oh yeah, that show is a really nice look into the future, like a very miraculous, optimistic hope for the future, which from right now looks a little distant. Looks further distant every damn day, which sucks. But one can dream.
One can dream, and one should dream, right? I mean, maybe the world needs to start believing in miracles a little bit more, and then maybe not miracles, but allow for hope to still exist.
Yeah.
Do you think that I would, okay, if I was like one of the top 10 people in the world that owns like a lot of money, I would fund a world experiment where like I get the entire world to be really hopeful. I don't know, like through campaigns, hiring all the influencers. Like, we're going to have a week of just hope, 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 hope. And then see if like anything changes. And then do the opposite, like a week of just despair, despair. Because I'm thinking of like the
Well,
Tulpa
but-
episode and how funny it would be if like the entire earth shifted one way or the other and if it like manifested stuff. I mean, that's totally crazy, but it would be kind of fun, if
That'd
you
be
were crazy and
interesting.
rich. Yeah. Just be like, why not? That would be the definitive answer to whether or not that stuff works or doesn't, and then you can move on.
I don't know
that.
if so like if you look at like SSRIs, they're supposed to like cure depression or at least help you through depression. And I'm sorry, Nick. I know I just usurped the order of conversation.
No, that's all right, man. My thoughts just come and go. I just let them go. It's all good.
How zen of you. I hold on to them.
Yeah,
like it's
all.
like a grudge that I hold on to for the rest of my life. But sometimes I worry that hope is opium for the people, and then the SSRI thing, like a week wouldn't be long enough. We might have to see what that looks like for a year. And one can argue that since fucking the Vietnam War, years of just like downward bad news flying at us from every media thing, then we should have at least 30 years of continual optimistic good news coming at us, regardless of what the world was doing, regardless if it was actually true or not. Just see what that good news can do for the actions of humans.
Well, it's
Right.
certain that a lot of the bad news wasn't true. So I think that good news cannot be true as well. That's fine with me.
Dude, I'm still hung up on the whole spontaneous combustion trend in the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah.
People apparently were just exploding randomly everywhere.
Yeah.
And have no idea what happened, and then it just disappeared.
LRADs, man. LRAD experimentation.
Oh my goodness. No, but that should be
shooting
a whole
microwaves
episode.
at people.
Yeah,
Oh my
trying to
God.
figure out that sweet spot between Havana syndrome
Yes.
and making people explode.
Yes. Human barbecue.
God.
But no, this notion of miracles, it would be interesting to see what happens. And there is some things that are like, as there's like conditions of believing in miracles, so to say. And what's interesting is like the people that believe in them, it transcends this thing of all education levels and income. So the same distribution of poor people believe in miracles, same distribution of rich people believe in miracles, same distribution of college graduates believe in miracles, or even
Interesting.
postdoctorates that would believe in it that didn't get an education or got a minimal amount of education.
Do we have profiles on who doesn't believe in miracles? Like, are they all people that had
Psychopaths.
what?
Psychopaths.
Psychopaths
shit.
don't believe in miracles?
No.
Ask them-
That's
ask
a
them
weird
if they
thing that they'd have
believe
in common.
when they're about to get arrested. Like,
Right.
hey, do you think you're going to get caught? Shit.
I would actually.
Interesting, though, they never think they're going to get caught. They do think they're quite clever. Nick?
No, it's okay. No, I was gonna say. What was I gonna say? I lost it.
I'm
No, I
sorry.
didn't. It's okay. It's fine. No. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, like, honestly, I think the belief in miracles or / hope is sort of like intrinsically human, And so I wonder if part of this, like this, I don't know if there's any push, but this push, if we're going to call it a push to sort of delegitimize miracles, it might be like this struggle that we have in our own human psyches to transcend into God, like trying to be the Ubermensch, like Nietzsche said, and become that thing that doesn't need the superstition of the primitive man. And so I wonder if there's a bit of hubris in that.
There may be, but you have historical justification for that. So miracles, at least within ancient Greece, were always medically defined, and they go back to the god of healing, like a Acropolis, starts with an A.
Acropolis.
Aciepis.
Oh yeah, Sleptalus or something.
Sepulus,
I
yes.
know who you're
Or
talking
whatever.
about.
I can't. I'm not going to pronounce it properly.
What?
But-
Nick, say it. What is the word?
I think it's Acephalus, I believe, maybe.
Acephalus.
It looks right,
How
but
is
I'm
that?
dyslexic, so I don't know. But it's the Greco-Roman god of medicine, where basically in these temples, that's where Hippocrates gets to become a doctor and gives his Hippocratic oath that still informs our doctor today. But his son of Apollo and son of his mortal princess Cornus, Cornus, Coronis.
Coronis.
And then you had the centaur Chiron, who taught him the art of healing. Zeus got really pissed that he taught this guy the art of healing because he was worried that Acephalus would teach all humans how to be immortal, which then starts to beg that idea of hubris that you're talking about.
Yeah. It's the Tower of Babel. It's the Icarus flying close to the sun. It's that thing that it's so dumb because we do it all the time. Like it's humans' innate desire to become God that every time we get close, it just destroys us. And we still don't learn our lessons. Like,
Well,
we
if
do
he
it every
made us
time.
in his own image, then it only makes sense that we're like, well, we're him. And like we're constantly trying to adhere to the form, the original.
Yeah.
Well, we had that question, that conversation about is and not, right? Like, so the thing that is and the thing that it could become. And so there is that like really deep need for humans to reach out to what they can become, the potentiality, and you vault that potentiality up into godness. But I mean, religions and all different types of mythology would tell you don't vault yourself up to the level of God. You kick yourself down a couple rungs.
So this is where I will take a Aristotelian point of argument, especially with respect to miracles. They consider it the act of God, divine intervention. An act of God is a perfect being. Simply because we are immortal does not mean we have obtained the other two aspects of godhood that are required to be titled as God. So even assume that we achieved the miracle of immortality. Miracle, by the way, comes from the word like miraclis in ancient Greek, goes through some sort of old French translation, and then we get miracle, but it means of something of wonderment. Immortality is the wonder of wonders, right? We can live forever, achieve everything. But that doesn't mean we are at the level of God yet.
Right.
Because we lack, what is the three conditions for God? Immortality,
omniscience,
and omnipresence. We lack the other two. But it's still a miracle that we would achieve immortality. And Zeus is a pretty petty god for, not letting us learn immortality. Just saying.
Right. Well, then you have the sort of like the offshoot with Lucifer offering the apple to Adam and Eve, thus stripping them of their immortality, of their godliness, in order to thrust them out into the desert where they have to become basically wretched humans.
It's interesting that the exchange is for knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
immortality for knowledge. Because miracle plays into faith a lot.
Mm-hmm.
This thing of not knowing. So if immortality is a miracle, would it be better? Would it be better to know to? Would it be better to reign in knowledge or serve in immortality?
Right. Well, and think about like the concept of miracleness being closer to God. Are we taking another bite of the apple when we're scientificizing the concept of metaphysical miracle? It's
Sure,
almost like we're rebiting the apple all over again, because we're
sure.
just like we're stripping ourselves of the connection to the whatever the God is, whatever that Godhead you want it to be.
I really enjoy the experience of miracle. Um, I can make the argument that I've engineered miracle or in my life. I can also argue that I am a product of a miraculous birth because, according to doctors, my mom should not have gotten pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be a medical impossibility. And yet she got pregnant. And then, even as she was pregnant, I was a premature baby. I guess what happened was I saw like aliens or something in the womb, and I tried to punch my way out of said womb. So they had to conduct a C-section.
Right.
So even that, in some certain sense, was a miracle. It was like 2 months premature, extremely premature. So like to remove miracle from the fabric of reality seems like a disservice to humanity as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
I worry though that stripping away another bite of the apple might be necessary for the evolution of our species.
Perhaps, but it might slip us deeper into the sort of the Luciferian clutches, if you will. If we're speaking metaphorically, it's like what is the contract of the biting of the apple? Well, it's to be thrust in away from God and to be away from the Garden of Eden.
I would to nitpick.
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer the satanic clutches rather than the Luciferian clutches, because Lucifer was much different than Satan. They become different characters, at least in my mind.
The Gnostic version of Lucifer is different than Satan, the Christian Satan. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. We can use this. We use that Christian idea of Satan too, for sure.
Yeah, I'm on the Christian kick from the research.
Yeah, and it's fair because the Gnostics wouldn't consider Lucifer as the ultimate adversary per se, the way the Christians would. So
yeah, because that's the Lucifer is something as a shield bearer. I mean, if you get even in Gnostic text, Michael gets a little bit rebellious, but why Michael is not casted out is due to, I guess, the pride. Michael didn't want to usurp God, but Lucifer did. So that's the difference, I suppose.
Yeah, Lucifer just got pissed off. It's funny too because there's a lot of this in mythology of the first race that comes before humans being envious of humans when God creates them, because he creates humans with mortality, which makes the first race, the immortal race, envious. And so there's a adversary that comes out of that first race and rebels against God. Happens within the Lord of the Rings and lots of different stories and archetypes. Yeah,
it's a good storytelling. Like where we need to touch on the Book of Enoch somewhere along the show.
Yeah, definitely.
But to reel it back in to this sort of miraculous thing, we got on this whole divine or how did we get on this tangent?
We were just talking about the idea of like systematically stripping away the woo from miracles and kind of the way that is another bite at the apple.
Yeah, if we were in the simulation, this is one big equation where the left side was all the components of reality and the right side was morality itself, vice versa, depending on how you want to look at it. Then I hope that the notion of miracles, that the imperialists and the scientists and like the people like Spinoza and Hume never strip away all of the godliness in it because that magic needs to be there for us to remain human.
Yeah.
Because, like, even suppose we transcend it, in which we will, into mixing AI with artificial intelligence. Like, I'd be happy to just like put a USB port somewhere in my brain, just like plug in a Quran, plug in an AI, and put on a helmet and just live life. That'd be great. But if it means stripping away like the woo-ness of miracles,
Yeah.
from a humanistic point of view, I don't know if I could live that way
Yeah.
at all.
It does seem to me very anti-human, which is funny because we have so many anti-human impulses within our psyches. It's just kind of interesting. It's like we're constantly trying to find ways to exterminate ourselves, or exterminate our humanity, you know, to vault ourselves into the realm of the gods.
And I
We got
think
to
that's
shed that primal human.
Ayla, I'm curious as to what you think from this from a philosophic point of view, but I'm also like wondering if that quest into like if a core component of being human is being uncertain, to worry, to hope, to dread, to be elated at some unexpected news. I Do you have any notions of this like miracle-esque idea from the more philosophic point of view? Ayla?
Yeah, there's a. Just trying to think if there's like a really slam dunk one. I think that perhaps within philosophy, you could equate miracles and the belief in them to a sort of optimism that underscores what we think of when we think of the human spirit. Um, I'm thinking it's tough, right? Because if you get into like some of the metaphysics, a discussion of miracles isn't necessarily involved because you're just looking at synchronicity. It gets into that mathematical devolution again. So maybe in the existentialist circles, you could find this sort of triumph because the human spirit is a very individualistic thing. And I think in those circles, the triumph of the individual is simply to be, to exist, to assert oneself or attempt to do so. Um, but for right now, what I'm actually thinking about more is the episode we did on what is the mind, or what is my mind? This is your mind. I think we did just a couple weeks ago. And it's just interesting because you think about consciousness and you think about, what we are. We're biological beings, but we also have this understanding that, we can reason our way enough about the natural world that we can make conclusions. And the fact that we can make conclusions and make predictions gives us the peace of mind to know that we're on the right track, that we can know some things, not all things, but some things. And I think that the pursuit of knowing in of itself is a bit of a miracle.
Yeah. I mean, I've been so we from an AI point of view, we call this, and I guess suppose within game theory, you have two types of games. You have games of complete information and incomplete information. Take something like chess. Chess, you have complete information. You know all the pieces on the board. You can calculate every move that happens on the chessboard given in an infinite amount of time. It's also true with cryptography. But suppose, like in real life, you have a game of incomplete information where you may not know all the variables at play.
Battleship.
Go.
Yes. Go. Well, Go, you can still see everything.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So, like, Ayla's closer in Battleship in the sense that you can't see the other person's battleships. And that's incomplete information. If it was all played on one board and you can see the position of all the battleships, then you have incomplete. But life is very much like a game of incomplete information. but that is so much better than having no information. 'Cause if
Mhm.
you've ever been put in a situation where you have no information, then something like a miracle event happening, taking the probabilistic word event into play here. The event of a miracle happening is so close to zero that you might as well call it, you in colloquial language, call it zero. And so the fact that we can reason at all is very important, because you take something from no information to incomplete information.
It seems like we're in a sort of like a psychological sweet spot then, because it seems like if you go the other side too, you lose that as well, right?
You lose a little bit of, like, yeah, you lose you lose the emotional high.
Right.
I like to think that all humans are just, we all seek drugs in reality, whether whatever your drug may be. It could be work, it could be coffee, it could be love, it could be whatever, what have you. But we all seek that. But a big component of that is the hope of re-upping. The hope of picking up that thing again, the miracle of re-upping. I mean, anybody who's ever had a drug dealer can tell you that drug dealers aren't the most stable folks. And it's always a miracle when they come through for you and drop off those drugs, whether it be work, uh, illicit drugs, coffee, whatever have you. And the thing that makes us a little less like, have you ever gone to Starbucks when you expected it to be open and it was closed?
Nick knows that all too well.
Yeah.
He
And
gets his coffee every morning, and with the shutdown, some days he would come back and be like, "Son of
just
a..."
randomly closed on like a Wednesday. I'm like, why?
yeah. And then that certainty plays into the whole thing of it. And if you go on the other side of humanity, if you go transhuman, if you go like further and further out into the AI, that thing of being a human disappears, but that adds to a spice of life. Like, imagine going home and just being like, it was closed. We'll find other Starbucks.
Right.
Calculating.
Calculating.
There are 5 Starbucks in my 2-mile radius.
Yes, we'll be back.
Yeah.
But you go home and you have this burst of emotion. You have this burst of human.
Yeah.
You have this thing.
Well, and it's funny because this transhumanist idea too. Say you were going to go get coffee, but then you have this chip in your brain that updates you about the availability of your favorite coffee shop, and before you walk out the door, it tells you coffee shop closed. Don't get coffee. It's like you've killed the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Because you already have knowledge of the outcome of the event, and so now there is no more mystery. There is no more zest, like you said, no spice to life.
Yeah, and this is coming from somebody who is admittedly is a transhumanist. Like, I enjoy the notion of the synchronicity of combining with AI. I really like that notion because it could propel us within our endeavors as a species. But I worry about the loss of humanity throughout that process. We have to take very careful care. We have to pay attention to what we're doing as this thing unfolds. And then also too, not to, like, this loss of miracle, this could make us so cold that we look at people who choose to not, like, put AI chips in their head as lesser than. And then we fall into fascism. We fall into authoritarianism, which is bad. As somebody who, like, I'm like a Mills liberalist. I'm like as classically liberal as you can. Maybe a little bit too extreme from time to time, but it's all good. Liberty and such. America. Yeah. But that thing is something that I do worry about, is like, as we start to integrate tech into our head, like, I never want to lose the notion that I can't engineer a miracle.
You strip the romance from the world, man.
Yeah. As a romantic, that's scary.
there's no more romance. The world becomes, kind of, formulaic almost. Yeah.
As you're sorry, Nick, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was done.
Okay, I thought you were done, and then I
No, I
wasn't sure if
appreciate
you were
it. I know.
starting to ramp
Right.
up. I was like,
Took a pause, and I'm like, but then again, no.
yeah, quit your pontificating over there.
Yeah.
No, I like what you guys are talking about. Specifically thinking back to this idea of like intuition or deductive reasoning, right? Like Mike, you were talking about you can have a game where you know all the variables, or you could have a game with unknown variables. Was that the terminology? You used something else. It wasn't variables.
But you got the gist of it. But it's incomplete information, meaning unknown variables, something like Battleship, and versus complete information, which is something like chess, where you know all the variables.
Got it. Yeah. And so as you were talking about that, I was thinking about how not knowing, like, because this is something that I've always thought about, is that like if you run in new age circles, if you run in church circles, if you run in scientific circles, there's a certain attachment that each of these groups have to knowing. I know the truth. No, I know the truth. And it's just funny because the minute that you enter into a system where it is complete information, where you know what's going on, you do say it's weird then that like, yeah, you're alleviated of the burden of not knowing. But like, I'm just going to say it. If God wanted us to know of his existence, why isn't he around? Right? Maybe he is, because if you see like God in the flowers or something like that. But I mean to say that I think that there's a reason we were born not having evidence that's satisfactory to our sense perceptions, because a part of being human is that uncertainty. And because if you thought you knew everything, you wouldn't be captivated by the pursuit of knowing, and that it's our unknowing that drives us to learn and to know and to grow.
I would agree wholeheartedly. This is the gift of free will. I feel like you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If we knew
and
everything,
it's Trinity. It's the question that drives us.
What do you mean by Trinity? Like the
Matrix.
Okay.
In the club where she's like, it's the question that drives us, Neo. I never really got that the first couple times around, but we watched it again recently, and I was like, oh yeah, I like that quote a lot.
So there's this notion of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Father being God, the Son being the Son of God, the Holy Ghost being the soul and spirit that's imparted within all of us. And it's like Jesus. It's like a game of incomplete information where maybe every human being, if we all got along, would put this puzzle together to make a picture of complete information. But no, I think like it's the gift of free will for the individual. This thing that all humans have been given that makes us different from the angels, where the exchange is just not knowing God's plan. We can't go to God and talk to God. The angels can, but we're not allowed. It's from a very Christian point of view, by the way. So forgive me. But we can't go to God and talk to God. We communicate through prayers, but God listens, but hardly ever whispers into your ear, sort of thing. And even if God whispers into your ear, it's God's plan for you, not God's plan for our whole species, sort of thing. So it's always incomplete information, and that's literally our gift, which sends us down the path of knowledge getting and sends us that allows the avenue of miracles to happen, because we don't know. Not knowing is such a crucial component. Not knowing and like hope for a thing to happen are two crucial components of miracles that, from a religious point of view, are necessary.
You get into that. Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Finish. Yeah.
I don't know if science can reconcile that notion of not knowing, because even though it's part of the scientific pursuit, it's probably the top two most painful things. Like The only other painful thing there is in science is finding out your hypothesis was wrong.
Mm.
So it's not knowing because you have to formulate a hypothesis and then finding out your hypothesis was wrong. And miracle works in the sense that you find a hypothesis that is such a long shot that actually makes sense, actually all works together. That's like the minutia of the feel of human experience. Because once you got it, once you had that eureka moment, once you had that bolt from Zeus that was thrown down at you from from a Greek point of view and struck you in the head, and now you have this idea that actually works. That is like the epitome of human existence. I don't know anything higher. Like you could equate that to like love. You could equate that to lots of things. But from an intellectualist, or I'm sorry, I'm not an intro. I'm from a pseudo intellectualist. I'm just a dumbass with a microphone. That's like the epitome of human existence for someone like me. Is that
It-
bolt of
Yeah, the bolt of lightning that almost is this resimulation of the first breath, right? It's the being electrified by God all over again, like being animated. There you go. That's the word. It's being
Yeah.
animated. That's pretty cool. But you were also saying something along the lines of hope and not knowing, and those being kind of the formulas for miracle. And I thought that was really interesting because it gets into really like the quantum probability zone and like things that get into that quantum world, which kind of interests me too, because then we're touching on something akin to reality manipulation.
Yeah, quantum manipulation ends up becoming one of the miracles. And the
Mhm.
scary thing is like if I put on my tinfoil hat, if I become a conspiracy theorist, I can argue that Jesus of Nazareth was a time traveler that knew about quantum manipulation.
Yeah.
And so he was able to heal people on the quantum level. He was able to manipulate matter on the quantum level, hence
Yeah.
water into wine. He was able to do the things that he was able to do because he understood quantum mechanics and understood quantum
Dude.
science.
I love this idea. Can we do a screenplay of like Jesus being this like
Quantum Jesus.
interdimensional, quantum traveler?
Do you
Jesus
want to die?
is the
Do you
quantum
know?
inspector.
Yeah.
You know what they did to witches, right? This is pure
Yeah.
blasphemy here. I'm speaking blasphemy. As blasphemy is a crime that you could die for. So as long as we all wear masks, I guess, except for me and Nick, as long as we all wear masks, I'm all good for it.
It's fair enough. But yeah, I do. I like that. I like this concept that you might be actually just, like it's the Schrodinger's miracle. It's like if you don't talk about it, you keep it inside and you hope, and you keep yourself limited to only the necessary knowledge and nothing more, then you kind of like increase the probability that your miracle will happen.
Yeah, and this is the stuff though that like Hume touches on though, like that no, not Hume, sorry, Spinoza. That it's just in give me one second, excuse me.
Mhm.
Oh God, it's just the ignorance of our understanding. So once we fully understand quantum science and how to manipulate it, then we can engineer the miracles that we saw in the Bible.
Mm.
Like, what if Moses' staff was really just a quantum tool that he
Right.
raised up that caused water particles to move in a certain way because of I don't know, quantum science? It's just umbrella that under that shield, under that
Yeah.
umbrella.
Right.
Then things become far less biblical, they become far less miraculous, become far more understandable, but it all makes sense, and that plays within this thing where it's not a transgression of natural law. We're not breaking any rules of physics or anything like that. We as humans were just too stupid to understand the physics up until 3 or 4,000 years later, 5,000, whatever the calendars are. We're
Right.
just not smart enough to understand it up until that point.
Mm.
But then
Yeah.
that erodes that quality of the miracle, right?
Right. It is, yeah. Well, and this becomes the perfect balance that reality kind of thrusts us into. That's that countermeasure, right? So it's like imagine keeping, Fortuna captive and then studying her completely. And then it's like, all right, well, you can let her go now, but Nemesis is going to be right here at your door knocking very soon, to equal you out a little bit.
That begets the question of bigger systems or larger systems, right? Like if quantum is the thing we're figuring out now, what's the thing we're going to be figuring out 1,000 years from now?
Right. Is it a super quantum?
Yeah. Is it the smaller system or is it a larger system?
Maybe once you go past the quantum, you're back into sizes of universes again. I don't know.
Yeah. And then questions of randomization. Do we find out that random things, is the chaos actually a thing? Like if we can't nail down the chaos within the quantum, then chaos is a thing, and we have to start to figure all that out, which then brings back in this specialness of miracles. Get a key component. We might not actually ever develop the linguistic tools to nail down what a miracle actually is from a scientific point of view. But that does not mean that miracles don't exist. And that's what pisses me off about the imperialists. What pisses me off about the science. Yeah. They're like, miracles aren't a thing. We'll figure it out later. Fuck off. And it's for real?
We have all the right answers. Don't even try to think about it. Trust me. We're at the pinnacle of human understanding right now in the 1800s.
So am I with this golf club about to hit it at the side of your head. But no, this notion of miracles, though, I feel like it's one of my favorite qualities of human existence because, like I said, like my birth was probably not supposed to happen. The subset of infinite realities that I exist in might be countable, maybe even less, like might actually be, discrete, right? Like I like to think everybody exists on a uncountable, infinite sort of thing, even if you don't take the shape and form. But I wonder if the medical circumstances of your birth, if you are really miraculously born, means that there's a smaller subset of universes that you exist in than, say, a completely planned and normal, quote unquote, normal birth, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Maybe that means you have more soul than the rest of the people, right?
Fucking, I hope not.
If your soul is spread out into infinite versions of you, if you have a smaller subset of infinity than the normal person, maybe you have more soul than each
at least the one.
That starts to question insanity, though. They're like, what if there are people who have so much soul spread over such a few amounts that their brain
overloading them?
Yeah, they can't process it.
Yeah, man, it's possible.
It's that question. Is that we wouldn't? So the funny thing is that the ancient Greeks would they would judge the insane as something as miracles, the erratics, and you can call them that, as something as akin to miracles, because they were so honest and so open about what they were and what they saw, but no other Greek was like that. So they looked upon them not with disgust and fear, but with like admiration and wonderment. Again, miracle comes from the word wonderment in the farthest tracings back. So you can look at it as something very similar to the two things. But if that is true, then that becomes very scary, because then it's a resource that over time, as you take, if you take someone that takes more and more risks, those risks don't work out for your other souls, then you're becoming more and more insane as time goes on.
Yeah. Maybe more volatile.
Or
maybe you have to absorb the experiences or partial, some sort of like photonic memory of the other people.
Yeah, that's what I don't understand about like spiritualists who say that like, oh, well, you're just here to learn. Your soul's here to learn. What? Am I going to go to like soul college after this? Is this like a
No, you're going to get a soul job, man.
A soul job?
Yeah. This is the soul college, and then you're gonna go get your soul 9 to 5 after this.
Oh dear
You
God.
know,
How
so
defeating.
yeah,
Processing prayers or something
yeah,
like that.
That crushes my soul. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
But no, I think like outside of just some like stories and stuff, I want to share. I think we've covered in a good conversational point of view the notion of miracles.
Mm,
I mean, like the to me the biggest thing is that it's the argument of the transgression of natural law versus just natural law unexplored.
mm.
And I hope it's the latter than the former. And then I worry what happens when we finally explore the complete set of natural laws.
I think the hallway just pushes further.
One can dream.
Yeah, I mean, you know, every indication has been thus, you know, so far. I mean, I don't know if there is a finish line to that process. You know?
I guess so. There's, I don't know how much this is going to expand the conversation.
I guess it kind of just, you know, it rounds into that thing, like that you know, quality of God, right? The omniscience, the all knowingness.
So
yeah,
if we can understand the incomplete information game, like that quality, like you said, the quality of God, can we as humans engineer miracles for ourselves and or for others? Like if we can take chaos into effect and kind of see how everybody interacts together, can you start to set up an environment and system to where a miracle actually happens?
mm-hmm. Yeah, man, they call it church. Yeah.
Not in that
Yeah.
sense. I mean, like in like the, because like I said, like if we figure everything out, then miracles are just an engineering problem.
Yeah, but I think I think you might be thinking of it as a hard science. We don't have that information yet. So you kind of have to treat it as a social science, I think, right now. And so that's where I mean, like in the reality of congregation and collective intention, that is where I think we see the most engineering and miracles right now, at least, until we figure the more technical mechanics.
Sure. So it's like a benevolent sociopaths game.
Yeah, I guess, right? Yeah, yeah. You could do it, yeah, if you're, you know, if you really wanted to make a go for it. I mean, I think also though, like, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't really know if we get to the point where all systems are known, anyways. So maybe the concept doesn't really matter, and it's like maybe we all get erased at some point. Maybe the inevitability is that God smites us, and we have to start at square one again.
You mean like reincarnation?
Or some sort of cataclysmic event in which a meteor destroys most of humanity, and then like only 7,000 people have to repopulate the earth, which happened, you know, 70,000 years ago.
That's very true. It has to figure everything out from square one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see that in the course of your life, right? Like I know I've definitely had times in my life when I burnt down all bridges, when I got kind of self-destructive and had to start over from square one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that happens in other people's lives too.
Yeah, big time, for sure. So it's, yeah, maybe we vault to the heights of heaven only to be slapped down each and every time.
Just like Icarus.
Just like Sisyphus, Icarus, all of them.
One can hope though that, so like I like to think that wisdom, like I said, like in the beginning, where miracles beget more miracles, as you kind of climb up this thing throughout decades of life, right? Yeah, the miracles you can engineer are a lot like the miracles of the life that you can engineer in your 50s and 60s are much better than the miracles you can engineer in your 20s, right? Maybe in your 20s it was like I got super wasted and I didn't go to jail. Fucking hell, that was a miracle.
Right.
And then in your 60s, it was like I was able to engineer the miracle of guiding my grandkid through the same waters of their 20s that I failed at, or something like that.
Mhm.
Both are still miracles, but just slightly higher than the other.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that, okay, sorry, that this didn't go like that. Right. So, like Sisyphus, you roll the boulder up the hill, it
Mm.
goes back down, and then you roll it back up again. And
But
this
this
was,
time is a little bit higher.
yeah, this was the contribution. And maybe when that falls down, it comes up to like here, which is
Right.
higher than here. You keep pushing it up until you get until you hit dementia or something. I don't know. Until you start to forget everything.
Yeah.
Maybe that might be the miracle given unto you of like prepping you for death. Being like, look, you're allowed to forget all of this shit because you're on your way to a higher dimension or a higher plane. Next time you dispelled all the wisdom you needed to. It's not a burden into you anymore. Because wisdom and knowledge is a burden. I don't care what anybody says, it's a burden.
Yeah.
But that can be dispelled now at this point, and other people should take care of you. They need to learn those responsibilities, blah, blah, blah. And you get into like Gog's higher architecture of how all of this shit works. Within how the fifth dimension works, should it be intelligently designed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I got, man.
Amen. I love it.
I got for miracles, bro.
Ayla, do you want to close us out with any final thoughts?
I mean, it's how often do you think about miracles, especially these days? I know personally, probably everybody here and maybe even listening can think back on like a personal moment where they can be like, dude, that was a miracle, cheating death or saving somebody's life or being in the right place at the right time, like there's just all these little coincidences, synchronicities. And it's so human of us to ascribe meaning to it all. And even more so to think about the thing ascribing the meaning, we question our own consciousness. And yet, while we may doubt our existence or the beyond or souls, we're still able to predict 100 years in advance the existence of black holes, or groups of physicists all intuited this thing called the Higgs field. And then we got proof, like what the hell? It's amazing and awesome. And yeah, I'm pro miracle. I think that they're there. And I think us being alive and thinking about them is a miracle.
Awesome. Well said.
Yeah, I second or third that.
Thank
Pro
you.
miracle all the way.
All the way.
New shirts, order them up.
Well, a special thank you to Mike for bringing this conversation to our table. Another killer conversation, man. Thank you again. It was a good one. You raised the bar, I'll have to say. I
Definitely.
got the pressure's on me for next week.
Touching. You reached down. Something special, kid. You reached down and you touched my heart.
There you go. Exactly.
Why is the music making me emotional? Like, oh.
But thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate you. We hope that you enjoyed this conversation. Let us know what you thought. If you have any comments, if you have any thoughts about what you heard tonight, we thank you so much. Please consider giving us a thumbs up and a subscription to whichever channel you're listening to this on, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, Verbal, Rumble, or Odyssey. Please just hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It would really help us out. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for listening. And if you want to check out the network of podcasts that we're on, me and Mike do a podcast with our buddy Keelan on Wednesdays and Sundays. It's called Screen Time Continuum. We review movies, TV shows, sometimes a video game or two. And we're there Wednesdays and Sundays at Screen Time Continuum. Keelan also has a podcast on Tuesday nights. It's called If Numbers Could Talk. Go check him out. He has a Facebook page and a YouTube page, If Numbers Could Talk. He is on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Dijon the Mustard, part of our podcasting crew, has a Twitch channel. It's called Strawberries and Coffee, and he's on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:30 p.m. Be sure to go give him a thumbs up. Hit that notification bell so that you know when he is streaming. Strawberries and Coffee on Twitch. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for us this time, Cognonauts. So for Exofathom, stay out there, and we'll see you on the next one. Good night.
Go out there and engineer a miracle.
There you go. Amen.
Later.